What is going on? Justin here with Native Watercraft. Today I've got the Slayer 12.5 Max out here in front of me. This is the updated version that we just released this past weekend at the Bassmaster Classic. This boat here will start shipping on March the 15th. I've also got the new Springblade Rudder Kit. This is the 5-inch version. This will fit on the 10 and 12.5 Max, so I'm going to be installing that today. We are also coming out with a 3-inch version that will fit on the Titan series or any older model Slayer and any other Native Watercraft boat that has a Propel drive. So you really don't need much to complete this install. I have here a drill with a Phillips head bit, and then I've got 3 different sizes of drill bits. I'm going to use a 5/32, a 5/16, and then a 3/8. So now let's take a look at everything that's included inside of your box. First thing that we'll pull out of the box, this is the actual blade itself. You'll notice up top, the spring is already installed for you. This is gonna give it that nice spring blade loaded action. Next thing I'll pull out, this is the 5-inch rudder shaft. As I mentioned, we have a 3 and a 5-inch version. This one here fits the 12.5 and 10 Max. Then we have here the new and improved rudder cap. This one has a couple new features that'll help improve performance on the water. Last thing here is a bag of assorted components. I've got some Spectre cabling that you can use to replace your current steering lines. You do not have to replace those, but we went ahead and included those anyway. I've also got a set of Spectre cord that you can use for your lift line on your blade. You can either run that line internally or externally. If you choose to do it externally, I've got some components in here that will help you facilitate that as well. All right, so let's run through all these components really quickly before we get started. The first bundle of Spectre cord will be used to replace your current steering line. Remember, you do not have to do that if you don't want to. And then your second set of Spectre cord will be used as your lift line for your Springblade rudder. That can either go internally or externally. Next, we have the rudder shaft gasket. This will go over the shaft before it's installed on the rudder cap. This will help keep water from coming up in that through-hole scupper and then out the top on the deck. Next, we have a new rudder bolt. This will replace the current 1/4-20 that's on the top of that rudder cap. This is actually different because it allows the Spectre cord to pass through the very center of the bolt and out the other end. Next, I have 2 new components from Native Watercraft. We're actually not going to use any internal tubing on our lift line for our rudder. This is a new part here. These are simple pass-throughs that will actually go through the hole that we drill in the kayak. It'll make things a whole lot cleaner and simpler for the user. So thank goodness we're going to save a ton of time on this installation. Lastly here, I have a couple components that we'll install on the surface of the kayak, one being a cleat to run your lift line through. You also have that comfort grip T-handle here. And then all the hardware included for that. And if you decide to run your line externally, I have this simple eyelet that will go on the stern of the kayak. I'm going to start off by installing my lift line internally. If you look on the right-hand side of the paddler on both the 12.5 and 10 Max, there's a nice little surface area here. That's where we're going to drill our first hole. I've got my 3 sizes of drill bits. I've got the 3/16, the 5/16, and the 3/8. I'm going to start off by using the 3/16 as a pilot hole, and then I'm going to gradually work my way up to that 3/8. We've located our surface area here. I'm going to drill directly center on that plane. Again, this area here should be the same on the 12.5 and 10 Max. I'm using my 3/16 inch first as a pilot hole, directly center. Just like that. Now I'm switching over to the 5/16 inch drill bit. That pilot hole should make it a little bit easier to drill that. And then I'm gonna finish it off here with a 3/8. You're not taking off a whole lot here, just making it a tad bit wider. Again, going directly down the center, should be super easy here, and then out just like so. All right, our first hole is drilled on the right-hand side of the paddler. I'm gonna locate my 2 pass-throughs here. I'm only gonna use one up front. I'm gonna save that other one for the stern, but this is where things get pretty cool. Like I mentioned, we're not using any internal tubing. This next step should probably take you 2 seconds. So the goal here was to get a nice snug fit. I've got my pass-through here. I'm just gonna place it over the hole like so. I'm gonna push it in just like that. Literally took me less than 2 seconds. That part is installed. Before installing our last pass-through on the stern of the kayak, I'm actually going to remove the rudder cap first. This will allow you to get a better angle on your drill and just make for an easier installation. I'm going to start by removing the lift lines first, one on each side here. And then once you've unfastened those, just remove the 1/4 from the center of the cap and take off your blade. Should slide right off. This next drill point here, you've got this nice lip on the stern of the kayak right in front of the rudder cap. We included this on the new 12.5 Max. You can also find this similar feature on the 10 Max, but I'm gonna take my 3/16 inch drill bit. I'm gonna start off by drilling that pilot hole and then work my way up. Starting off with that 3/16, directly center. Now that our last hole is drilled, I've got my final pass through here. I'm gonna install it by placing it over the hole, give it a slight little push. And if the hole ends up being too tight, you can always grab a hammer and just barely tap it in. It shouldn't take much. Just like that. Phew! All right, now the hard part is finally over. I know we don't like drilling into our kayak, but it was just 2 simple holes. We've got a really nice clean install with those new pass-throughs. Now it's time to run our Spectra cord. All right, so I know what you're thinking. How the heck am I gonna get this cord from one side of the kayak to the other? Well, that answer is simple. This Spectra cord here is gonna be stiff enough to where we can shimmy it down the outside wall of the kayak all the way down to the stern, no problem. This should take us 1 try. All right, folks, I wouldn't lie to you. This is try number 1. We are live. I'm just gonna angle the cord towards the wall of the kayak. We're gonna get this done first try, no problem. So that should be enough. I'm gonna go see how we did. So I told y'all, I wouldn't lie to you, this is still the first go. I have not yet opened up this access hatch, but I'm just gonna remove that really quickly. The line should be sitting directly underneath it. Yes, it is. First try. The key there is to keep good tension on that Spectra cord as it goes down. As you can see, this stuff is super stiff. So now we've got our line. I'm just gonna reach my hand through and I'm gonna thread it through the pass-through that we installed in the stern. All right, now that I've got it through, we can go back up towards the stern and we can get the last portion of this lift line installed. For this last part here, I've got my cleat. This is gonna go on the right-hand side of the paddler directly on the groove track. And then I've got the hardware needed to install that. I've got 2 10/32 screws, as well as 2 10/32 slider slugs. And then to go on the end of your lift line, I've got a comfort grip T-handle. So both sliders are going in on that center groove. Once you get both of those installed, then we can tighten down this cleat here using those 10/32 screws. Now that the cleat is installed, I'm gonna take my Spectra cord, thread it through the base, out the other end, and then I've got my comfort grip T-handle here. I'm gonna do a double knot at the end, so 1, and then come back through and do 1 more. Once you've got that cinched down, you can come back through and remove that tag in. So once these lines do get wet for the first time, they will loosen up just a tad bit. So we recommend, after the first couple of uses, going back and tightening down these lines once more. This will ensure that they will stay on the rudder cap and your steering will not fail. New rudder cap is going on. There is a pass-through on the outer rim of the rudder cap here. That hole is gonna face closest towards the stern, but I'm gonna go ahead and thread through both of my Spectra cords here. Just like that. All I'm doing here for this step, I'm gonna loosen up just 1 screw on both sides, just so we can keep some tension on the line while we finish installing the rudder itself. Each cord should be wound clockwise, so I'm going clockwise on both sides here. And I'm just gonna leave it like this until we get that full rudder blade installed. So this next part is very important. Do not forget this step, or you'll have to backtrack and redo the whole thing. Before you take the Spectra cord through the top of the rudder cap, you have to pass that line through the included T-bolt here, directly down the center, and then take your excess cable and go all the way down through the center of the rudder cap. And then we'll just leave this off to the side here until we can get that rudder blade fully assembled. I'm gonna take a quick knee here. We're going to the underside of the kayak. You should have plenty of slack here on that Spectre cable. I'm gonna take the cord, I'm gonna thread it through the top of the rudder shaft here, all the way out the other side. And then once it's out the other side, I'm gonna pull it through, get enough slack there. And then you've got this little cylinder on the outside portion of the rudder shaft. This little cylinder is gonna act as a pulley, so I'm gonna thread our line back through the underside of the cylinder, come all the way out the top. And then once you have it out the top, we're gonna thread it back through the top portion of the cylinder, so back through the top portion here. Once it's threaded through, pull it on out. Once we're done here, we can begin installing the rudder blade itself. We've got the shaft here. I'm gonna show you visually how it should be sitting below the rudder cap, but you've got that cylinder here that I just talked about a second ago. That's gonna be facing the stern. So this is how the shaft will be sitting in the water, just like that. When installing the blade, you want the edge to be facing towards the stern as well. So this is how it should look when installed properly. Just like that, edge is facing the stern. So I'm gonna wedge the portion with the spring blade that's already installed. I'm gonna wedge that in between our shaft here, just like that. I've got that little edge on that spring lined up directly center. And then if you look at your tension cap here that's also in your kit, you've got a couple of slots, and there's one slot that's larger than the other. So this larger slot is going to capture that inner portion of the spring, allowing us to adjust the tension here. So I'm going to install the button by first pressing it in about halfway. Don't go all the way quite yet. All right, so now our button is installed about halfway. Before pressing it all the way through, I'm gonna turn it about a quarter of a turn. You can either use an Allen key here, or you can also use your hands, doesn't matter. If you look at the top of the tension cap itself, it's got some directional arrows. If you turn it to the left, it will loosen the spring. If you turn it to the right, it will tighten the spring. So here at the factory, we take it about a quarter of a turn to the right to tighten the spring. So I've got my Allen key all the way out parallel. I'm going to take it down just a quarter. My teeth are now aligned. I'm just going to push it all the way through. You should hear a click on that other end. And now we've got perfect tension on that Springblade rudder. So for whatever reason, if you ever wanted to uninstall your tension cap, or you just wanted to tighten up that spring just a little bit more, go to the other side on your rudder shaft here. And then on each side, it's got a locking mechanism keeping it in place. All you have to do is pinch down on both sides and then push through, just like that. Now we're back to where we started. That button is halfway installed. And then you would just simply take it down to your preference there and then reinstall by pushing it all the way through. So we'll do this one more time here. I've got my 5/16 inch Allen key. Take it all the way out to parallel, all the way down, quarter of a turn. Make sure both sets of teeth are lined up correctly. And then push all the way through. Hear that click, just like that. And now we've got perfect tension. So to finish installing our lift line here, there's a hole directly on top of the blade here. I'm gonna thread my line through the top, just like that. If I can get it through, hold on one second. Just like this. And then there's a hole on the side of the blade going out both sides. Doesn't matter what side you go through, and just pull it through. And same thing that we did up top with the Comfort Grip T-handle. I'm gonna do a double knot. And then once you're happy with your knot, you can remove that tag in. Now that my knot is tied, my tag end is removed, I'm gonna pull it all the way through until it goes inside of the blade itself. Pull it all the way down, just like that. That knot should nestle directly inside of the blade so it's flush on both sides. And then pull that excess line through. Now it's time to attach our rudder shaft to the top of our rudder cap. I didn't use the gasket that was included in our kit. I'm just simply using the one that was already on the kayak. So you're going to take the shaft all the way through that center scupper there and then through your gasket, and then we'll tighten it down using that included T-bolt that we already threaded through. So make sure that gasket is threaded over the shaft just like that. And then I'm going to align my cap with my rudder here. Again, making sure all that tension is pulled through. My cap is installed here. I'm going to take that rudder bolt and then I'm going to simply give it a couple of turns, tighten it up. I'm going to turn it as many times as I can using my hand. So depending on how stiff you want your steering, you can actually use an adjustable wrench here to tighten it down even more. If you want that turning to be a little bit stiffer. If not, you can keep it as is. I've got my bolt for my lift line where I want it. Now I'm just going to take these Spectre cord cables here. I'm going to wind each one around one of these screws. This will help keep tension on the line over time. So I've got my Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to back these out one by one. Not all the way. I'm still going to leave them seated in. So I've got them backed out just about halfway, and now I'm just going to tighten down my cables. I'm also making sure that my handle is aligned correctly. It's perpendicular with the boat. It's not turned to one side or the other. So my handle is aligned how I want it. My steering cap is aligned how I want it. So now going clockwise, I'm going to wrap my steering cable around each screw. I'm going to wrap them around at least twice before going down to the next screw. So 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 on that left-hand side. I'm going clockwise again, 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 on that right-hand side. Once you're done with that, you can go back through with your Phillips head, tighten each screw down. It's really important not to over-tighten these screws. You don't want to fray any of your steering cable. Just like that. So right now I'm just going to test the functionality of our rudder. It is currently in the deployed position. Now I'm going to put it in the stowed position by pulling on this T-handle here. Now to keep it in that locked position, just simply take your line through that cleat off the side and it should hold no problem. To release the rudder, you just simply take your line, pulling up on the cleat just like so, and release. Since it's spring loaded, that blade shoots down automatically and then takes in all of your line. All right, appreciate y'all for watching. This was the Springblade Rudder Kit on the brand new Slayer Propel 12.5 Max. We actually just released this upgraded version this past weekend at the Bassmaster Classic. We'll start shipping this boat on March the 15th. So if you've got a Titan or older Slayer or any other older native watercraft model that uses a Propel drive, you can also use this system as well. You just have to determine whether you need the 3-inch shaft or the 5-inch shaft. All those older models will use the 3-inch version, and then the Slayer Propel 12.5 and 10 Max will use the 5-inch version. Again, appreciate y'all for watching. Congratulations on purchasing the Springblade Rudder Kit. This is a super easy installation. Should take no time at all. All right, so stay safe. We'll see you on the water.